Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another historical humans heritage. And today we are going to be taking just a slightly different approach to our normal videos because we're talking about something that is honestly truly one of a kind case scenario where we're talking about the UNESCO project to revive the spirit of Mosul, which is a city in Iraq that was occupied and destroyed. And now we are working to both reconstruct the site and help preserve it
Mhm.
for the future. Like work to correct some of the
Yes, this is
bad.
yeah. Unlike most of what we talk about on this particular series, this isn't going to be looking at a site simply for its historical value and how people are trying to work the modern world around the site and keep it safe. No, what this is we're essentially rebuilding it from the ground up and then trying to keep it from falling down ever again. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a difficult and monumental task, and it's very different when you have to rebuild the entire monument. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked and answered, similar to what happened with the fire in Notre Dame. What do you rebuild, and how do you rebuild it?
I
Is
know
sort of what we're looking at today.
Japan is also looking at rebuilding one of their great temples, but yeah, it's a really important question, especially for the future, because obviously you want to preserve the past, you want to preserve this cultural icon, but at the same time, how do you navigate modern politics, modern cultural dilemmas, and the whole point of that is this city is one of the ways that you can link together a lot of things. Like I switched over to the second page, the about the initiative column, just so you can
Yeah,
tag along, but
yeah,
talking
that's
about how it's a symbol of multicultural inhabitation,
mhm.
which it obviously is home to Islamic elements, but also Nestorian Christian elements, which you want to give the callback?
Yeah, so the Nestorians are a sect of Christianity we touched on very briefly during our podcast episode, The Great Khans. Um, in most of Europe, they were considered a heretical branch of Christianity. So they set out across what is now the Middle East and into Asia, and basically spread there as a minority religious sect and did very well for themselves. They were a key part of a number of Mongolian Khanites and even had one Mongolian Khan convert to their religion.
Those
uh,
pesky Mongolians end up everywhere.
yeah, and so the fact that they have a strong presence in Iraq is no surprising uh, from a historical perspective, and it's also very fun to see mosques and churches side by side and see how that develops. That's something that makes Mosul very unique and very beautiful. And
One other thing that they do touch on that makes it unique, beyond just the cultural aspects, is the architecture, which is kind of the whole backbone of this initiative, because Mosul is was characterized by highly decorated brick architecture and facades, marble interiors, masonry that's often like highly decorative, and one of the biggest things is a part of the stone that's there, the local alabaster, which was nicknamed Mosul marble, that really gave the city part of its distinctive architectural and um,
yeah,
structural foundations, almost right.
yeah, it's its unique style. This is basically what happens when you take something like the Islamic Golden Age, which has the obsession with carving and painting everything, and combine it with a place that has a very unique building material. It's going to make something that is unique to the site and it, unbelievably and extravagantly beautiful. So it was really quite a shame when in 2014 it all began to get torn down.
Yeah, and then the battle to free it in 2017 led to roughly 80% destruction of the city.
Yeah, the organization occupying it uh, basically decided that it was going to go out scorched earth style, which is never a fun thing under any circumstances.
Yeah, so the city was really destroyed, and thousands of manuscripts, books, libraries, museums were destroyed, looted. Weirdly enough, some of the stuff that was looted actually made its way to North America via a certain crafts and recreation
No,
company.
we do not speak their name.
Yeah.
uh,
All I'm
how
going to
we
say
hate
is
them.
it rhymes with Robbie Bobby.
Um, one of the things I want to touch about too is because this is a multicultural site. Mosul's name even means the linking point. One of the things I want to talk about is I've jumped over to the heritage page just
Oh,
briefly.
do you want to point out your cat real quick, though?
Yes, the cat overseeing everything. That's very fun.
Yes,
They're
cats.
just overseeing the construction. There is always, of course, one construction cat
You have to
um,
have a supervisor on site.
at at any site.
All right, heritage.
But yes, with it being a linking point, one of the things I want to point out is that the funding for this project and its support comes from all over. This is a UNESCO project, which means it is the United Nations doing the work. But it's important to point out that this work is heavily supported by the government and people of Iraq, and it has received funding from both the United Arab Emirates to the tune of over $50 million and from the European Union to about 38.5 million. So this is something that not only is the United Nations deeming on, the broad political sense, yes, this is good to do, but the local people want, the national government wants, and several other multinational and foreign nations also feel the need to invest in. This is just the support that goes behind this city as being a historical treasure, as being a linking point, is honestly something that cannot be understated. It's very unique to see. We love to see it.
Yeah, and the fact that so many different parties are taking an interest into rebuilding it really tells you how much that people value the culture, the heritage that really comes from it. And it also really goes into just how important the culture is. And that's part of what they highlight here with the cultural life is that you can destroy the physical presence of the city, but there's so much cultural impact that happens both in historic and modern cities that transcends generations, transcends lifetimes, transcends countries, continents. I don't know. I think that's like one of the biggest thing. And the European Union um, obviously pledged a lot of training to it. They established a film lab in the Institute of Fine Arts of Mosul,
Yeah.
and 20 students have been trained and got hands-on experience at each of the different roles that define the fundamental aspects of cinema production.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the other things that is tied up with the project for Revive the Spirit of Mosul is the education program that UNESCO is putting into effect in conjunction with with I believe the Iraqi Institution for Development, among other organizing bodies, and that's PVE education, or prevention of violent extremism through education, which
Mm-hmm.
is hopefully an awareness campaign to get the cultural importance and the history of these places taught in schools around the world as much as possible, so that when people come to these places, they understand what they're looking at and are less willing to desecrate them.
And also, it helps prevent damage to the sites, but it also just straight up prevents a lot of violent extremism because education tends to be one of the best cures for that. And one of the things that they also highlight a little bit further down is the primary school, the Ekla. I'm not even gonna pronounce it. I keep
Don't try.
butchering it, so I'm
Yeah.
not gonna try.
All,
But they basically
all
rebuilt
Eklas.
an elementary school that was destroyed during the occupation of the city, and it's working to try and undo a lot of the wrongs that had happened.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, the UNESCO has reported that the project has already reached some 50,000 children. Uh, so that is, hopefully that's going to be a lasting impact for, uh, for the future, for the next generation. Um, I'm really hoping it doesn't go the way of the DARE program, but my little faith in government mandated education initiatives aside, we have hope.
Well, and then there is one other initiative that they did start alongside it for adults, which they called the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Program, or TVET for adults, which teaches adults general education, study of technologies, and related sciences. So they teach a lot of practical skills for work. So they're not only trying to prevent future damage, but they're also trying to educate and help give valuable skills that can be used for a more constructive future.
One of the unique things that we're talking about here is UNESCO approaching how to preserve a site uh, by basically giving everyone education and jobs.
It's crazy how that tends to be a good cure for a lot of instability.
Yeah. It's amazing how that stuff works. And but it's not something we usually take into account when we talk about preserving sites, is things like this. So it's very fun to talk about, and it's very good to see efforts like this going on.
I do want to slightly expand on that because I think that's a very, very valuable point. And I think kind of the cornerstone of this whole project is that there are new alternatives that are coming to light, new programs that are starting to emerge that are taking a different approach to preservation, a different approach to things that we have been doing for generations, for centuries. And it's a really interesting approach because it takes a more personable, more action-oriented approach. Instead of this overall goal of we're going to preserve everything, it's like, no, we're also going to work with the people. We're going to work with those who are going to eventually be the ones to carry on this legacy. It's like they're not only like paving the road, but they're teaching the people how to repave it and how to preserve it and, continue the upkeep. I love seeing this, and I think realistically that this could be implemented in a lot of low income areas, a lot of high violent crime areas, a lot of war zones.
Yeah, a lot of places could use this, and one of the reasons why this is so key to archaeology and preservation and these World Heritage sites is because ultimately the people in these pictures right here, these people are ultimately the ones who are the guardians of the site. They are the people who keep it, who mind it, who protect it, and they are the ones who really are ultimately get to decide whether or not it is truly valuable. If it's not valuable to them, what is it really worth a lot of the time?
And they're true stewards of their own culture. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of modern think tanks are starting to lean towards is, cultural ownership. Because there was a period of high colonialization where people collected culture. They didn't preserve it, they collected it.
Yep. Yeah, that's a lovely point to leave off on. It's the horrors of the past instead of the hope of the future. Let's end on the down before we start spiraling, guys.
But this is why there's a bright future, because we've got initiatives like this versus the British Museum. Thank you guys for watching. Check us out in the next video.